good earnings, Paul, across the board. And of course, as you know, the key metric for Comcast and all of the other cable operators is their broadband subscriber number. So the street was looking at something like about 170,000 customer losses. They actually reported much, much better numbers, only about 65,000 broadband subscriber losses. So just kind of really assuaging investors that maybe we are finally seeing some green shoots here, and maybe there's an inflection around the corner, which is why we're seeing the stock trade up the way it is today.
At the same time, because of that strong performance there, stronger than expected performance there, that is offsetting lackluster growth at the Peacock streaming service. Can Peacock survive on its own, or does Comcast need to do something with that streaming business?
So Peacock is by all means, Scarlett, as you just pointed out, a very, very subscale player. I mean, they have about 40 to 50 million subscribers. You compare that to some of the bigger streaming services, most notably Netflix, that has, more than 325 million global subscribers. So there is absolutely no doubt that at some point they have to think of what the bigger strategy is going to be for Peacock and even for NBC Universal. They probably will have to combine it with another streaming service. And yes, they have kind of been struggling continuously with profitability. But one of the good things that they did mention is thanks to a great deal of promotional activity that Comcast actually had early this year, and that was because of the Winter Olympics. They had the Milan Cortina Olympics. They actually saw pretty good subscriber growth in Peacock. So that should actually help them report profitability for the very first time in Peacock's history in the second quarter. So we are seeing some green shoots on the Peacock side as well.
So they can count me as a subscriber because we signed up during the Olympics and I've been too lazy to do anything about it, even though I'm a Walmart Plus member, so I can switch over to Paramount and watch Landman, but I just haven't done it yet because it involves, doing something.
There's a lot of moving pieces there. Hey, Geetha, just as it relates to Comcast, Brian Roberts and his family, the founding family here, they're not known to sit on their hands and do nothing with all the industry consolidation and the changes in what's going on in the world here. What do you think he does with his companies? He's got so many assets, but one could argue not a lot of growth stories there.
Yeah, this has really kind of been the burning question for Comcast. So we do know last year they were involved in the whole Warner Brothers Discovery bidding process along with Netflix and Paramount. They were in fact the third bidder. Of course, they did not offer cash. Their offer was an all-stock offer, but they were prepared to actually spin out the NBC business and combine it with Warner Brothers Discovery. Of course, that did not go through. But I think really the big question now for investors is, will they spin out NBC? It is a pretty good asset. So what they did, Paul and Scarlett, last year was they also kind of separated out the cable network business into a separate company called Versant. So all that you have right now with NBC, the NBC Media unit, is all growth assets. I mean, you look at the theme park units doing very well. Studio is doing well. Again, Peacock, they're kind of trying to get it back on track. So you have a collection of pretty good assets, which really begs the question, what do they do? The street, I think, definitely wants them to separate out NBC so that it could be trading at much better multiples. And then the question becomes, okay, you're going to have a pure play cable operator in Comcast. Do they ultimately combine with, their peer, maybe Charter or maybe somebody else? But all those questions kind of left unanswered today. Brian Roberts and the team really talked down M&A in today's earnings call.
Interesting that they would talk it down when, as Paul mentioned, that's kind of in the company's DNA to be looking for deals. And I think about Cabletown. Do you remember 30 Rock?
Yes,
Cabletown with a K.
Yep.
They ended up being the owners of NBC in the fictional version of
and
what
one of
happens here.
the good businesses they have is the theme park business. Geetha, real quick, why do you think Warner Brothers Discovery, whose shareholders approved the deal, is trading at a 12% discount to the deal price? Is there real regulatory risk there?
I don't think so, Paul. It looks like everything is going to go on track. Obviously, the shareholders approved it. They seem to have a pretty straightforward regulatory path, at least here in the United States. I think maybe the one wild card is, the EU, where we really don't know and where there could be some concentration risk.